You are listening to a Sustainable World Radio podcast. Sustainable World Radio brings you in-depth interviews, news, and commentary about exciting, creative, and innovative ways of living. Produced in Santa Barbara, California, Sustainable World focuses on positive solutions to environmental challenges, solutions that adhere to the permaculture ethics, earth care, people care, fair share. Are you interested in learning more about permaculture projects around the globe, how to plant a food forest, restorative design, or ethnobotany? Then stay tuned to Sustainable World Radio. I'm Jill Cloutier. And I'm Jill Cloutier, and I'm joined this morning with Margie Bushman and Wesley Rowe, co-founders of the Santa Barbara Permaculture Network. We have on the phone live from Malawi, Africa, Walter Nyika, coordinator of the International Permaculture Conference and Convergence number 9. And we're talking about this event that's going to be happening in November 2009 of this year. And good morning, Margie and Wes.
Good morning, Jill.
Good morning, Jill.
Good morning, Walter. Can you hear us?
Yes, good morning, Jill.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Yeah, you were loud and clear. And I'd like to introduce my guests right now. Margie Bushman and Wesley Rowe are co-founders of the Santa Barbara Permaculture Network. Both Margie and Wes are permaculture activists, educators, and organizers based in Santa Barbara. Margie and Wes have brought many leaders in the permaculture and sustainability movements to the Southern and Central California area. And they're also part of the official support group for the International Permaculture Conference and Convergence, along with other communities and individuals around the world. And traditionally, IPCs take place every 2 years and switch between continents. Past host sites have been Australia, USA, New Zealand, Scandinavia, and Brazil, and we heard about that on a past show. And the IPC 9 will be happening in Africa this year, and we'll be speaking with Walter about that this morning. Walter Nyika is regional coordinator of the Regional Schools and Colleges Permaculture Program in Malawi, Africa. And the Regional Schools and Colleges Permaculture Program, also known as ReScope, has been established to promote the sharing of experiences by partners who are committed to assisting young people in schools and colleges. And ReScope also demonstrates sustainable land use, as well as enhances healthy environments in and out of schools. And Walter is also the coordinator of the next IPC 9 that's going to be held in Africa. Good morning, everybody. We have a lot to talk about today. And
Good morning, Jill.
Good morning, Walter. Can you tell our listeners where you are right now and maybe what you're looking at, what the view is if you went outside your door?
Yes, right now I'm in Blantyre, the commercial city of Malawi, and it's just after sunset now. Very nice sunset that I'm looking at, and the weather is just warm, quite comfortable, and there is also a clear sky all around, so it's a very nice, beautiful sunset in Blantyre, Malawi.
Oh, that's wonderful, Walter. And I would love to hear the story. And we talked about this. Walter's been a guest on the show probably, was that about a year ago, would you say?
Yeah, over a year ago.
Yeah, over
Jill.
a year ago. And Walter, if you could tell us how you met, how you hooked up with Margie and Wes of the Santa Barbara Permaculture Network.
Thank you, Jill. I met Margie and Wes in Brazil at the 8th International Permaculture Conference and Convergence. We were all participants there, and we also had a tour of the permaculture sites in Brazil together. So we spent a good part of a month in Brazil with Margie and Wes, and along the way we did a lot of talking about IPC 9, about IPC 8, and about the global situation in terms.
I think we may have just lost Walter. I was just about to comment on how clear the connection was. We will get him back on the line. And maybe Margie and Wes, I'll turn my mic off. If you could tell our listeners exactly, they might be thinking, what is an IPC? Could you tell them what that is and maybe explain a bit about them, and I'll get Walter back on the line.
Well, as your introduction said, they are the international conferences for permaculturists from around the world to come together, share their work, their projects, hear about, and present also during the official conference to the world the work of different permaculturists.
Yeah, and at the Brazil conference in 2007, the Africans made a presentation, and they were accepted as the official organizers for the next IPC 9, which is happening in Africa. And what Margie and I really liked about the group that came from Africa was that it involved many, many countries from South Africa, Zimbabwe, Malawi, Zambia, Kenya, all came together and as a group made a proposal to the international group, and it was accepted, and they started then organizing the events in Africa.
And of course, as we've said many times in the past, we were so impressed with the collective and collaborative effort of the African delegates as they came to the last IPC in Brazil, how beautifully they worked together and how they're doing this for this conference, this upcoming conference.
Yeah. So I think we've got Walter back on, and Jill will be connecting him.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
You're back. Great. And I think, Walter, while we were calling you back, Margie and Wes were explaining what an IPC is for our listeners who may not know. And also you were explaining that you met Margie and Wes in Brazil. And when you went to Brazil for the International Permaculture Convergence number 8, did you have any idea that you would actually be bringing the next IPC to Africa? And how excited are you about that?
Very exciting, Jill. And before we left Africa for IPC 8, we expressed the wish to host the next Convergence, because way back in the late 1990s, we had an attempt to host the IPC as Zimbabwe, but the attempt did not succeed then because of a few problems. And so when we were invited to attend the 8th IPC, we were determined to bring IPC 9 to Africa, because we are very proud of the work that we have done in Africa, and we are also very happy with the impact that permaculture has had in this part of the world. So we did, as African delegates to IPC 8, talk in advance of the 8th IPC to host IPC 9. So we went to IPC 8 prepared to make a presentation for having Africa hosting the 9th IPC. And we really were excited when we got the news that we were going to host the 9th IPC whilst we were still in Brazil for IPC 8.
Tell us why you feel it's very, very important to have the IPC 9 in Africa at this time.
This is a very crucial time for us in Africa, because for a long time we have had people trying to get the problems that many communities in Africa, such as food insecurity, such as problems of nutrition insecurity, and the problems of poverty. People have, for a long time now, tried to use high external input approaches, such as the so-called Green Revolution, to try and help Africa out of this situation. And to us in Africa, these attempts have not only failed, but they've left the average small-scale African farmer poorer and much more vulnerable to food shortages than was the case before. And of late, we have had moves to have the new Green Revolution for Africa, and it's a multi-billion-dollar program that is trying to try what we consider to be the failed approaches to help Africa out of the challenges that it is facing. Now, parallel to these challenging situations that we have in Africa, we have had since the early 90s permaculture projects making a big difference to the situation of the ordinary small-scale farmer in Africa with some exciting impact of permaculture projects that have been implemented, particularly in the southern part of Africa. And we feel it is opportune now for us to share these exciting developments with the world to show the great potential that Africa has to solve some of the challenges that not only Africa is facing, but the whole world is facing in terms of access to food and other issues. So we are really excited to have the world come and see what opportunities exist in Africa at the moment.
And it sounds like, too, this will help provide African farmers with alternatives to the so-called green revolution methods of farming and agriculture.
Definitely, Jill. It's something that we have seen working in many different climatic zones in Africa, and we just are excited to show the great potential. And what makes us very excited is that it doesn't take a lot of investment, a lot of money to make a difference to the situation of African agriculture. With the low input approaches that we use in permaculture, it takes just maybe 1% of the current development aid coming to Africa to really transform many communities in Africa and get them to be self-sufficient in terms of food, water, and other requirements. So it's really something that we are excited to share with the world.
Walter, the theme for the IPC is Planned Africa. Could you give us a little background on that and how the collective group arrived at that theme? And I think it follows, what you've already talked about, but I think you can really highlight how that process was and how you reached the theme for the conference.
Yes, Wes, thank you. We have, over the years, since the early 90s, been implementing permaculture projects across the region. And we've been so busy doing this that we've not really been good at sharing our good stories that have been coming out of the communities that we work with. And all this time, we've had a lot of the development partners in Africa bringing in solutions that require a lot of inputs, a lot of imported technologies to help the African communities. And when we now realize that all these efforts that have been done by development partners have not really succeeded in turning around the situation, actually they've made the situation much worse. And when we see that together with the good, exciting stories of the many small projects that have been doing well in the different parts of Africa, we feel that it's now time to really tell the story of the good potential, the great potential that we have for the small-scale farmer in Africa. So we have been networking as permaculture projects to share our stories, and we find that all our stories are very exciting, but they have not been shared with the whole world. So we feel it is now time to tell the whole world the stories that are emerging from the communities that are using low input approaches, such as permaculture, to make a difference to their lifestyles. And through this networking, we have therefore come up with the Plan Africa initiative, where we want to document the good experiences that have been coming out of the projects that we have been working with, and then use these experiences to put forward a professional proposal to the development partners for Africa, and request them to give us a tiny proportion of their development assistance, and see what we can do with this little resource, whatever resources that are made available to us. So this is the initiative that we are calling Plan Africa, which links in well with the theme of the IPC 9, which is food and empowerment. And we feel that with the tools that permaculture provides to the farmer, we can really make a difference in terms of accessing food and improving food security, nutrition security, not only in Africa, but in many other parts of the world.
That's great.
And underlying this theme of food and empowerment is a byline which is designing solutions for a sustainable future. This byline, we feel, can be shared with all participants from different parts of the world who will be coming to IPC 9, so that all of them will have something to take home after participating in what we anticipate to be a very, very lively IPC that will be held here in Malawi during the first week of November.
It sounds wonderful, Walter. And I wanted just to make a quick announcement that you are listening to KCSB 91.9 FM in Santa Barbara, streaming online at kcsb.org. And I'm Jill Cloutier. My guests this morning are Margie Bushman and Wesley Rowe, co-founders of the Santa Barbara Permaculture Network, and Mugove Walter Nyika, coordinator of the IPC 9, which is going to be happening in Africa later on in this year. So, Margie, I believe that you had a question for Walter.
I just wanted to say that Africa is such a vibrant continent, and once again, with countries coming to learn from Africa or learning from the different places that the IPCs are held, Africa is the size of 3 USAs. And it's 54 different countries with 1,000 different languages. And when we talk about how excited we were to see this collective, collaborative effort, that's what that represents, this representation of all these different cultures and peoples, and how important the work that permaculture has been doing since the late 1980s. And that I would really love to hear a little bit more about Walter's experience, what his first experiences were with permaculture. And Bill Mollison came to Africa early. Some of his his earliest work was in Africa. So this is a very wonderful time to be taking an IPC back to Africa and the work being done there. And Wes has asked me to say the website for the IPC so that people can go and see how this is moving along and unfolding. That's www.ipc9.org. Lots and lots of information there about how all of this is beginning to unfold or taking place.
Thank you, Margie. That's a very important question. The permaculture started off in Africa when Bill Mollison visited Botswana, which is one of the countries in Southern Africa, in 1987. And there he did a course, permaculture design course, for participants from a number of countries in the region, including Zimbabwe and South Africa. And after that course in Botswana in 1987, the Zimbabwean delegates who attended that course were so motivated by the course that they decided to set up a permaculture training center so that they can share this message that they got from Bill with more people in Southern Africa. So a year later, they established the Fambi Zanai Permaculture Center, which is one of the oldest permaculture institutes in the world. And Fambi Zanai Permaculture Center is just outside Harare, the capital city of Zimbabwe. And that center is, over the years, trained many African and international participants in permaculture. And many of the graduates of Fambi Zanai Permaculture Center have gone on to establish their own permaculture organizations. And there are a number of them, such as the Schools and Colleges Permaculture Program, which is working with the schools in Zimbabwe, and which has given rise to the Regional Schools and Colleges Permaculture Program, which is now in 6 countries in East and Southern Africa, including Uganda, Kenya, Zambia, Malawi, and South Africa. And other organizations that have been an offshoot of the training by Fambidzanai Permaculture Center include the Chikukwa Ecological Land Use Community Trust, which is working in the eastern district of Chimanimani in Zimbabwe. And in that district, you have a whole community that has adopted permaculture practices and has made a big difference to their environment, to their food and nutrition security situation. Just to give an example of one of the exciting results in that community is that some of the springs that had long dried up due to deforestation and other environmental problems, some of these springs were rejuvenated and they started to produce good, clean water once again. And the community and the visitors are very excited about this development. So really a lot of exciting work has happened in Africa since Bill Mollison first came to Africa in 1987.
Walter, I think you sent out an invitation for Bill Mollison and David Holgram, the co-originators of permaculture, to come to the IPC as honored guests. But also you have many pioneer teachers in Africa. I think of John Naziri as one that we know personally. And, Bill has that thing about permaculture. When you come and teach it, then it just grows by itself. In Africa, you have seen, just by the people we've met in Brazil, how incredible it spread through Africa and all the African teachers. So, do you have any more pioneer teachers that that you can name that kind of move the movement forward in Africa?
Yes, we have many teachers that have really done a lot of work, and apart from John Zira, whom we have mentioned, who has worked in a number of countries, including Mozambique, South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Zambia. We also have John Wilson, who has really done a lot of work in East and Southern Africa in many countries, and is one of the founders of Fambidzanai Permaculture Center, and he has continued to teach and to share his experiences with many people across East and Southern Africa. We also have Kudzanai Louis Mashingaidze, who is now the director of Fambidzanai Permaculture Center. He is one of the students also of the schools and colleges permaculture program, in addition to also being a product of Fambidzanai Permaculture Center. And we have Julia Spiti, who is one of the key permaculture trainers in the Eastern District of Zimbabwe that I told you has had very exciting results as a result of getting the whole community to implement permaculture. So we have over 100 teachers who are ready to spread and share their experiences with other people in Africa. So we are very confident that we can really make a difference to the situation in Africa, especially after IPC 9, with the support of other partners from around the world.
And Walter, could you tell our listeners what they might find at the IPC 9? What are some of the events that you have planned for this huge, huge conference and convergence?
Thank you. It's a very exciting thing, firstly because it is an event that will straddle a number of countries, and that makes it more exciting because participants will be able to see and experience the various communities that we have participating in the permaculture projects in this part of the world. So the first event will happen in Zimbabwe at Fambidzanai Permaculture Center, which is an amazing place to live at. And this event will be the International Permaculture Design course, which will be facilitated by a team that comprises of Joel Glansbeck, who is an international permaculture teacher in the U.S., who has been teaching permaculture for over 20 years now, and co-facilitating or teaching this International Permaculture Design course will be John Zira, who is one of our most experienced permaculture trainers in Africa and who is now based in South Africa. So the two of them will work with the seasoned permaculture trainers at Fambidzanai Permaculture Training Center. So that will kick off the whole series of events that the IPC9 will be made up of. After that 2-week International Permaculture Design course, we will then have the International Permaculture Convergence kicking off on the 2nd of November in Lilongwe, the capital city of Malawi. And this will bring together the permaculture movement from across the world. We are getting interest from all 5 continents. We have got people who are making inquiries to come and attend this event. And the Convergence will be a platform for the permaculture practitioners to share experiences and to strategize about the future of this exciting movement, which is slowly becoming a discipline on its own. We have permaculture education is growing in leaps and bounds, and we hope one of the outputs of IPC9 will be to take permaculture education forward so that we can have the discipline of permaculture making a greater impact on the education systems across the world. After the Convergence, which will run for 4 days, we will then have a 1-day International Permaculture Conference, which will open the whole event to the public, and the conference will again be held in Lilongwe, Malawi, on the same site that will have the Convergence. And at the conference, we hope that we will have not only Bill Mollison and David Holmgreen, the co-founders of permaculture, but also people like Wangari Maathai, a Nobel Environmental Prize laureate from Kenya. We are inviting her to come and be with us at the conference. And we will have a cross-section of African society attending, from school children to policymakers. All of them will be represented at the conference. And following the conference, we are going to have a permaculture site tour, which is a series of visits to permaculture projects in Malawi, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. This is very exciting because participants will be able to see the work that has been done over the years in terms of using permaculture to make a difference in many communities in the region. So those 4 events make up the IPC9, and it's a very exciting package that we are lining up for the participants that will make it to IPC9.
Walter, this is Wes here. We hear a lot of news about all kinds of things happening in Africa, mostly because news tends to do the sensational stuff, but we don't hear much of the good stuff. And I think people are always, take their read from news about traveling. And, I think Ali Sharif wrote a great email to all of us telling us about his travels over the last couple of months through Zimbabwe and Mozambique and Zambia and Malawi. And if you could just further on and explain how travel is in Africa and the situation that exists right now.
Actually, it's expected that when our media reports about what is happening in Africa, they go for the sensational story, and the other sort of ordinary stories tend to be left out. And I think that's one important reason why people should really come and see for themselves. So in terms of traveling in Africa, it's quite safe, and we do have facilities to facilitate smooth travel. And I know many participants have had a lot of negative news coming out of Zimbabwe in particular. And I would like to share with you that I was in Zimbabwe only last week, and the situation in terms of travel is completely safe, and it's also we have the fewer problems that used to be the case in the country over the last few years. Those problems are now slowly getting over, and it's now quite easy to travel throughout the country. I'm sure the listeners have heard about the changes that have taken place on the political front in Zimbabwe, and these changes have actually started to bring some developments, some positive developments on the ground in terms of people being able to go about their lives normally. Although we still have challenges, but in terms of travel, it's now very safe, and it is also quite easy to travel around the country. In Malawi, we have Malawi is known as the warm heart of Africa, and it's not for a wrong reason that it's called that, because the people are very friendly, and the overall situation is very stable, and we don't anticipate any problems in terms of traveling.
Walter, could you describe the center that the Convergence will be held at? It sounds very beautiful outside the capital of Malawi.
Yes, the center where the IPC9 Convergence and Conference will be hosted is called Kumbali Village. It is a lodge which is on several hectares of land, and at that lodge there's been established a traditional African village which has been built by the owners of the lodge in order to show visitors what a typical African village and how to live in a typical African village is like. So we have a set of huts that have been built for accommodation, and these huts have got all the standard linen for accommodation, but you also have, in addition, outside the huts, we have some facilities for water and ablutions in the form of pit latrines, and they are also establishing composting toilets around the village. And all the structures in this village are made from locally available materials such as grass and timber, and they are very, very environmentally friendly, as well as having excellent insulation properties. So most of the events for IPC will be centered around this village. But the village is just 15 minutes drive from the city of Lilongwe, so we will get additional facilities and accommodation within the city of Lilongwe, which has got many different choices of different levels of facilities. And also next to the village is an upmarket lodge, and that lodge has excellent facilities for guests and visitors. And also next to the lodge is a newly built permaculture demonstration center, which will be accessible by foot by the participants that will be coming to IPC9. So we have a facility that will host IPC9 that combines the best of both worlds. We've got very modern facilities at the lodge and also very traditional facilities in the village. So we have the best of both worlds, and it's really a very, very nice place with lots of space and lots of fresh air because it's on a very, very large farm just outside the city of Lilongwe.
Walter, as you're talking and describing this event that's going to be happening, I keep flashing to the fact that many corporations seem to have their eye on Africa's natural resources at this moment. And it seems that the IPC9 and permaculture really coming to the forefront in Africa is a perfect balance to what these corporations have in mind in the new so-called green revolution that's planned for Africa. Could you comment on that?
Yes, there's a lot of interest in Africa, particularly in the face of the global recession and the economic problems that people are facing all over the world, the food crisis, the energy descent. We have, for example, corporations coming to establish plantations of jatropha and other fuel-giving plants in Africa because we do have lots of potential in terms of land, water, and the other resources that are in short supply in other parts of the world. So IPC9 is really coming at a critical point where we would want to see the African communities empowered to deal with issues of globalization, which are increasingly affecting us because of the limelight, the interest that is coming and falling on Africa. So we feel IPC9 is coming at the right time where communities in Africa can be able to benefit from the tools that permaculture provides them so that they are empowered in the sense of being able to take care of their food security issues and also being better equipped to fight poverty, which is a big challenge across Africa. So we are very, very excited about the timing for IPC9 with the events that are happening across the world.
It is very, very exciting. And it sounds like you could foresee Africa undergoing almost a continental move toward a more sustainable way of farming and of life as well.
Yes, that's the greatest vision that we have for permaculture in Africa, that we have so much potential in Africa. We are really convinced that the reasons why we have continued to have sad stories coming out of Africa in terms of famine and hunger and poverty are really because the African communities have been disoriented by foreign solutions that have been imposed on these communities. So we believe that we have enough resources, enough cultural heritage, and enough wisdom in Africa for communities to actually go back to the more sustainable lifestyles that they used to enjoy before they became disoriented by the influence of foreign cultures. Not that we want the African communities not to keep pace with the developments elsewhere, but we would want the African communities to be able to select the best out of their heritage, out of their cultures, and also be in a position to select the best that comes out of sharing with the other cultures, rather than the wholesale sort of replacement of African culture, African traditions with the foreign ones. And we feel that has been the root cause of the continued problems that we have seen in Africa. So we feel that there is great potential for African communities to show the world how to live more sustainably with the local environments. And permaculture does help to provide those tools.
I wanted also to mention the website, Walter's website, and the website for the IPC9 is www.ipc and then the number 9.org.
Yes, still. And Walter, one thing that is really underlying the need for really sustainable development in Africa is the impact of AIDS and HIV on the populations of Africa. And I think permaculture has been in the forefront of nutrition, creating centers, really supporting the movement to provide relief for all the people that have been impacted through HIV.
Thank you, Wes, for bringing that up because HIV and AIDS have really been key issues that we have been tackling with for a long time now in this part of the world. And as usual, the sort of conventional approaches to HIV and AIDS have been to deliver expensive drugs, imported drugs that, however, have not been able to reach most people because of poverty and also health delivery systems that fail to cope with the situation. So to supplement the efforts of bringing conventional health service to the people affected and infected by HIV and AIDS, permaculture projects have been empowering communities to be able to help orphans and other people affected and infected by the virus in terms of improving their food security and also helping them to access alternative health solutions to opportunistic infections that the people that are living with the virus have to deal with. So we have had exciting stories of people benefiting from using local herbal remedies that are part of the intercropping that we encourage in permaculture, and also the use of organic foods that the farmers are able to produce using permaculture approaches. And we have had also, because of improvements in food security, those people who have been able to access the antiretroviral therapy that national governments and other development partners have been providing to communities. The food security that improves as a result of the permaculture intervention is very helpful to ensure that the people who get the treatments also have got the food to go with the treatments, because the treatments can only work when people have got adequate food. So permaculture has really been used to make a difference to many communities that have been negatively impacted by HIV and AIDS. We are also very happy to note those achievements in Africa.
Walter, we only have a few minutes left. We have about 5 minutes left in our interview. I wanted to, and I'm so thrilled. I read about your work for your project. You help raise funds and develop a project to assist children, a project called Integrated Organic Nutrition Gardens for Disadvantaged Children. And your work is wonderful. And I feel that I would also like to find out, to continue your work and also help with the IPC9, what kind of help do you need, and are there sponsorships available? Or tell our listeners what you need to make this a successful event.
Oh, thank you very much. We need help, firstly, in terms of documenting our experiences, particularly through the websites. We need support to make sure that our website has got all the information that people need, particularly those who intend to travel to IPC9. So that would be very helpful. And then we need support to sponsor many delegates that would want to come to IPC9, particularly from Africa and the other developing countries that are very keen to come and whom we feel would benefit greatly from the exposure from their participation at the IPC9 events. So we've got a lot of organizations that can help to organize groups of people from all across Africa and other developing countries to come and attend IPC9. And in our project work at the regional schools and colleges permaculture program, we need sponsors who can adopt particular schools in any African country, in any part of Africa, so that the schools can be assisted to use permaculture to make a difference in the lives of the children that attend to the school, particularly the most disadvantaged children, the orphans and other vulnerable children that can benefit greatly from being trained in permaculture. So those are some of the assistance that we need, not only to make IPC9 a success, but also to move forward our many projects that are making a difference to many African communities.
Walter, it's really important, I think, to let the permaculture people around the world know that this conference is being really supported by and funded by their early sign-up. This will help develop the whole program. What people should know is that during these hard economic times, the organizers haven't been able to tap into any other income stream and have basically organized this on themselves within their own organizations without getting paid. And so it's really important that we understand that this is a new model for our convergences and that people reach out and also register as early as possible and get the money to the organizers to help them move forward with each step of the incredible conferences coming forward.
Yes, Wes, thank you very much. That's a good question because so far we have managed to do a lot of work to prepare for IPC9, but I'd like to share with you that we have not done this work with the support of any foundations or any donations that have come our way. We have really tried to just do the best with what we have at the moment, and we have managed to achieve quite a lot. And it will help us a lot if participants who look forward to coming to IPC9 could pay their fees in advance. This will help us to put in place all the things that are required to make IPC9 a successful event. So we appeal to all potential participants to IPC9 to commit their fees in advance of them coming here so that we can be able to prepare for them a memorable IPC9. So we are confident that things will run very smoothly if we get the cooperation of all the participants that are coming to IPC9.
Thank you, Walter. We are now at the end of our time together, but it's been an honor to speak with you about all of the projects you're doing and the IPC9 that you're coordinating. And again, if people would like information on Walter and his work, and do you have a website about Rescope, Walter, or not yet?
Yes, we do have a website. People can see our work on www.rescopeprogram.org. Rescope program spelled RESCOPEPROGRAMME. One word. Rescope program, one word, .org.
Great.
So that's our website.
And the website for the IPC9 is www.ipc9.org. And thank you so much, Walter.
Thank you, Jill, and thank you, Margie and Wes, for the interesting interview that we have had. Thank you, listeners, as well, for your time.
Yes, we will see each other in Africa.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Walter. Thank you.
You've been listening to a Sustainable World Radio podcast. For more information or to hear our other podcasts or interviews, visit www.sustainableworldradio.com. Sustainable World Radio is produced by Jill Cloutier. Music by Dana Lyons. Thanks for listening.